The UN conference on the least developed countries is all set to kick off in Doha, Qatar from tomorrow. On the eve of the mega summit today, the participating nations have already discussed the national agenda to be tabled at the 5-day meet. Nepali delegation also had an opportunity to call on UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as the two sides held a bilateral discussion. Good evening, I'm Amar Singh Pradhan and these are the headlines of the hour. Local levels failed to recruit employees in the absence of Federal Civil Service Act. Dispute at centre impacts all three tiers of the government. Pressure mounts on Prime Minister Dahal for the power sharing and distribution of ministries. Cabinet expansion likely after presidential election. Over 1,500 earthquake-ravaged schools yet to be reconstructed, school curriculum being taught in the highly fragile infrastructures. Armed police force chalk out a 2-0 victory over 3-star Chosboy Ace-Pass Nepal Police 2-1. Manang Marsyangit locked in a 1-0 stalemate against Himalayan Sherpa. Minister for Federal Affairs and General Administration Aman Lal Modi, while assuming his duties, had prioritized works related to the Federal Civil Service Act. The ministry had instantly begun works to prepare the draft. However, the bill that was withdrawn during the end of the term of the previous parliament is unlikely to move forward without the consensus between political parties. The Parliament's failure in formulating the Act has affected federal, provincial as well as local level government. The Federal Civil Service Act, which was discussed for a long time in the State Affairs Committee, was registered in the Parliament in the year 2018. However, the Deuba-led government had withdrawn the bill in October 2021. The political parties had been polarized regarding under whom the Chief Secretary and Secretary of Provincial level and Administrative Officer of local level will work. The parties had also failed to reach a consensus regarding whether to maintain the age bar of 58 years for the government officers intact or to increase and make it 60 years. The government, citing these factors, had withdrawn the bill. The ministry has once again prepared a draft on the basis of the previous one. The ministry this time has sought consensus among the senior leaders of major political parties to prevent disputes. The ministry has geared up to place Province Chief Secretary, Secretary and Administrative Officer of the local level under the provincial government. Discussions between the political parties on the issue, meanwhile, have yet to begin. The provincial and local government have been unable to recruit government employees due to the federal parliament to prepare Civil Service Act. The administrative bodies across the country have been affected due to lack of Civil Service Act, while the general public have been facing difficulty in receiving public services. The government, however, has still remained indifferent towards this issue. With the ouster of CPN-UML from the government, Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal currently has the responsibility of 16 ministries. Premier Dahal has, however, not been able to appoint the ministers despite all the vacancies. With the 8 parties in the new alliance all vying for key ministerial berths, power sharing has become all the more complicated. Prime Minister Dahal's cabinet presently has 6 ministers, with 5 from CPN-Mao Centre and 1 from Janmat Party. The vacancies include key ministries of Home, Finance and Foreign Affairs. Nepali Congress, Mao Centre, Unified Socialist and Janta Samajwadi have all targeted key ministries of Home, Finance, Foreign Affairs, Physical Infrastructure, Education and Communication. Congress has demanded the Ministry of Finance along with the ministries headed by the CPN-UML. Mao Centre, who are leading the government, has also staked its claim for these ministries. With all the 8 parties in the coalition demanding important ministerial portfolios, Prime Minister Dahal has meanwhile learned to have reached the mindset of roping in Rashtriya Swatantra Party into the government. The 5th United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries (LDC) is taking place in Doha, Qatar from tomorrow till 9th of March. The Nepali delegation also called on UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as the two sides held a bilateral meeting earlier today. The summit will be attended by the heads of state and government or the heads of delegation of the LDCs. Member states today moved closer towards helping the world's most vulnerable countries pull out of poverty and debt, recover from the pandemic and meet ongoing climate challenges by adopting through a consensus the resolution that lays down a 10-year blueprint called the Doha Programme of Action. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Physical Infrastructure and Transport Narayan Kaji Shrestha, representing Nepal, addressed the summit earlier today, which was coordinated by Malawi, the chair of LDC Group.
Who continue to suffer from perpetuity of poverty and underdevelopment. Mr. Chair, the answer lies, among others, in the lack of sufficient and impactful support measures and meaningful collaboration to implement the programs of action. Clearly, as in the 1980s, the LDCs need to transform the structures of their economies with stronger industrial capacity, better productivity, and an expanded export base. For decades, LDC's GDP and share of export.
Minister Shrestha said the least developed countries were the battleground on which the 2030 agenda will be won or lost. Minister Shrestha stressed on the need for synergy between climate action and the pandemic recovery package. He called on the development partners to meet their official development assistance ODA commitments to spend 0.15 to 0.20% of gross national income and repurpose the special unused drawing rights. He cited other action areas such as enhancing international trade in the least developed countries to support their growth and their global exports. The delegation, along with Minister Shrestha, also held talks with UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres. World Bank and International Monetary Fund have projected that the Russian war on Ukraine and corona pandemic will have its effect on economic recession till the year 2024. This will impact the economy of big and small nations alike. The countries like Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, UAE and South Korea, the main labor destination in Nepal, are also likely to be affected by the global economic downturn. Economists have therefore started expressing concern over foreign employment and remittance collection. International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have claimed that the ongoing economic recession will deepen this year, as Nepal's labor destination nations cannot remain exception to this reality. IMF has projected the growth rate of Malaysia among the other 5 Asian nations to be limited to 4.3%, while Saudi Arabia's growth rate will not exceed 3.2%. Remittance collection is considered the lifeline of the country's national economy. With the labor destination nation's economy badly dented, its impact is bound to be felt in the country's economy, according to the experts. In the meantime, the human resource companies are maintaining that it is too early to feel intimidated by the situation and that the economic gloom set in due to the Russian-Ukraine war and the pandemic will slowly settle down. Experts have also called on the focus on productive sector to sustain the national economy rather than express concern over dwindling remittance collection. And now time for our segment Public Pulse, where it texts us with their opinion.
Public Pulse.
And yesterday we had asked you, why have construction works of Dharora not concluded even after 2 years of inauguration? 50% of you voted for option A, rush for inauguration, 13% voted for option B, irresponsible contractors, and 37% voted for option C, government indifference. And today's question, why have parties interpreted the foreign policy in their own respective ways? Your options are option A, feeble understanding, option B, political interest, option C, geopolitical impact. The voting is on. Type NAWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Over 1,500 community schools that had been destroyed by the 2015 April earthquake have yet to be reconstructed. The reconstruction have been halted due to a dispute among local bodies, absence of land ownership certificate and lack of students. The school authorities have reported of having to operate in unsafe buildings. The building of Vidyarthi Niketan High School in Bhaktapur Darbar Square premises has been provided a red sticker considering it is unsafe. However, due to lack of permission for reconstruction from the Bhaktapur municipality, the school with 350 students has been operating in the unsafe building. The destroyed building has remained covered with tent for the past 7 years. Some 1,500 schools across the country that had been damaged by the 2015 April earthquake have not been repaired. The scenario has discouraged students to attend classes, while it has also affected their learning outcomes. A total of 9,000 community schools of 31 districts had been damaged during the April earthquake. The government had announced of reconstructing all the damaged schools within 3 years. However, 7,500 schools have been reconstructed so far at a cost of 34 billion rupees. There is a general call on the authorities to reconstruct the damaged community schools on time, considering the dilapidated condition of these schools. And in our public voice segment, we had asked people in several provinces regarding their take on the government decision to increase the price of milk. Let's take a look at what they have to say.
Public voice.
किसानको हितमा छ दुधको मूल्य बढाएको त ठीक लाग्यो तर यसको साथसाथै दाना चोकर को पनि बढेपछि हामीले जस्ता तस्तै नै हुन खोज्छ
त्यति बढाउँदाखेरि पनि हाम्रो मूल्यलाई त घाटै छ
दाना घाँसको मूल्य जब जति बढिराख्यो र दुधको मूल्य पनि बढ्नु पर्यो
एक कप चियाको मूल्य 35 देखि 40 रुपैयाँ हुँदा पनि हामीले त्यो दुधको मूल्य हामी त्यही रूपमा बढ्नु भनेको यो न्यायोचित हैन
सहकारीहरुलाई अथवा सरकारले निकायका मान्छेहरुलाई चाहिँ दुध बढाउने सल्लाह दिएर नै त्यहाँबाट उले चाहिँ नाजा फाइदा उठाउँदैछ
बिचौलियाको रूपमा चाहिँ यो मूल्य वृद्धि हुनु भनेको यो सामान्य जनताहरुको लागि पनि राम्रो पक्ष होइन
9 रुपैयाँ बढ्यो भने त झन् 100 कट्न जान्छ त्यो निर्णय चाहिँ राम्रो होइन
यो निर्णयलाई म एकदम अपरिपक्व लिएको छु
And time for some international news. Concerns about North Korea's chronic food shortages are growing, with multiple sources suggesting this week that deaths due to starvation are now likely. Some experts say the country has hit its worst point since the 90s. Famine known as the Arduous March caused mass starvation and killed hundreds of thousands of people, or an estimated 35% of what was then a 20 million strong population in North Korea. Trade data, satellite images and assessments by the United Nations and South Korean authorities all suggest the food supply has now dipped below the amount needed to satisfy minimum human needs, according to Lucas Rani-Fokela, a research analyst at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Though producing solid evidence to back up those claims is made difficult by the country's isolation, few experts doubt its assessment. Even before the COVID pandemic, nearly half of the North Korean population was undernourished, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. 3 years of closed borders and isolation can only have made matters worse. In a sign of just how desperate the situation has become, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held a 4-day Workers' Party meeting this week to discuss a revamp of the country's agriculture sector, calling for a fundamental transformation. Now time for sports update.
Sports news.
The departmental team APF have thumped a 3-star club 2-0 in today's first match played at the Dasrat Stadium. After a goalless first half at the Dasrat Stadium, APF scored both the goals in the second half. Manikumar Lama scored a spectacular goal as he converted a free kick from about 40 yards. APF added one more goal in the 87th minute as their foreign recruit Adam Bedam scored from a close range to seal the 2-0 victory. APF have retained Bedam in the team from the last season. The Patan-based club, being coached by Meghraj Casey, was simply outplayed by the spirited boys from APF in the match today. Former national captain Biraj Maharjan and Bikram Lama, a noted defender, were able to hold on the APF team in the first half, but the team conceded 2 goals in the second to give full points to APF. New entrants Church Boys United have won their debut match at the A-Division League Football. Church Boys United stunned 5-time champions Nepal Police Club 2-1 to kick off their A-Division League campaign in style. In the match played at Lalitpur Castle Ground, Church Boys came from behind to register full points. Nepal Police Club shot into the lead early in the first half with a goal by Ravi Paswan in the 14th minute. However, Ashish Chaudhary equalized for Church Boys with a goal at the stroke of first half. Church Boys foreign recruit Franklin Quite scored in the 70th minute, utilizing a spot kick to register full points. Meanwhile, 8-time champions Manang Marsangdi had to settle for a 1-1 stalemate against Himalayan Sherpa club. Manang failed to hold on to the 1-goal advantage as Roshan Rana Magar had scored for Manang Marsangdi in the 14th minute of the match. Roshan's powerful strike had deflected off Sanjit Rai into the back of the net. When it all looked like Manang would walk away with full points, the Sherpa club scored with barely 5 minutes remaining for the long whistle. Substitute Suresh Kumar took advantage of an advancing goalkeeper to slot home and spoil Manang's party. 3 more matches are lined up for tomorrow as NRT take on Saddobato, Nepal Army play against Sankata, while defending champions Machindra have a match against Sankata. And up next is weather update. And those were our latest headlines. Up next is News in Nepali. Good night.